The most challenging question to answer when shopping a new phone? That 1-year upgrade. I got to spend some time with the Xperia 1 Mark III. I still have my Xperia 1 Mark II. You could pry this phone from my cold dead hands. But while we're always chatting up the latest and greatest, increasingly, the most difficult award I can deliver is claiming a new phone is so good that it's worthy of flipping a 1-year-old phone to get it. I think that means we need a showdown. Starting off with the design, it's the same and I love it. Getting nitpicky, the more frosted back on the Mark III, I prefer that to the mirror finish on the Mark II, but it's the same tall phone we all know and love. Angular, simple, monolithic, and without any dopey notch or hole punch in the screen. Which brings us to the display. This is one of the biggest areas of improvement for the Mark III. At 240 Hz with black frame insertion to even further reduce motion blur. And the Mark III display is easier to read in daylight. Talking about some camera tech, the other biggest update for the Xperia was adding in a dual stage telephoto camera sensor. We've got better reach and higher optical quality, and it's a nice way to extend the super zoom feel of this phone. That said, the ultra wide and the main camera performance is pretty close between the two phones, even down to the wonderful 4K 120 frame per second slow motion mode. A good chunk of the camera tech is probably gonna feel similar. Chatting about the audio, headphone performance is similar. Microphone performance, likewise, very good, very similar. Speaker tech. We can hear there's a clear jump in speaker output on the Mark III, and that's a nice little lifestyle perk. Ditto the haptics. The Xperia 1 Mark I and Mark II had a powerful but kinda dull haptic motor. The Mark III is a little more precise, a bit more detailed, and that matters even a little more on a Sony because you can use that haptic motor as a tactile response to audio playback, and that effect is nicer on the Mark III. Overall phone performance, this one is tricky. Ultimately, the Mark III is more powerful than the Mark II. Now, this isn't on Sony, but there are a handful of apps and services where that extra power might not be applied. I have a bunch of other videos and blog posts detailing this performance conversation, especially with the Snapdragon 888 this year. But unlike past years, where we could more easily count on a new chip being an across-the-board upgrade, this year we need to be a little more specific about what apps and services we use. As an example, video rendering. The Mark III is faster in PowerDirector, but about the same in KineMaster. Audio mixdown, a lot faster. Raw photo editing in PhotoMate R3, smoother and faster. But talking about gaming, thermals, and sustained performance, the Mark II can probably hang pretty close in a large number of situations. And as each phone starts to run hot, I think the Mark II can float a little longer using HS power control while playing the same games. HS power control does help improve the performance and battery longevity on the Mark III, but I think you can stretch a little further on the Mark II. Lastly, for power conversations, the Mark II added Qi wireless charging, and the Mark III takes another step up with wireless power sharing. Moving over to network performance, in the United States, the Mark III takes a win for finally supporting sub-6 5G. Internationally, that's gonna be about the same Mark II to Mark III. And a couple small points on software. The camera app on the Mark III should make more people happy. A new basic mode in Photo Pro should make it easier to get to the juicy full auto and video modes that the trio of camera apps are found on the Mark II. That said, I think the Mark II's side dock is easier to activate than the more narrow activation zone on the Mark III. Okay, wrapping this all up, if you own an Xperia 1 Mark II, is the Mark III worthy of being considered for a 1-year upgrade? maybe internationally, if you already had 5G support, I'm kind of leaning towards no. The screen improvements are a very nice perk, but the overall feel of the phone, the main camera performance, and maybe some of the issues with increased power draw and thermals from the new chipset make this a really tight race. However, if you're in the USA, where the Mark II is an LTE only phone, I'm leaning a little more towards yes. To jump on the train for proper sub-6 5G support and all of those aforementioned perks. But in getting to use both phones, Sony's formula this year is a little more focused on refinement. The jump from Mark I to Mark II was pretty significant in terms of design changes, lifestyle features, and camera technology. Not forgetting, we also got the headphone jack back on the Mark II, which was obviously the correct move. Removing headphone jacks from premium phones is always going to be lame. The move from Mark II to Mark III doesn't feel as dramatic. More, it's polishing and improving the core features we already enjoyed. The Mark III's screen, though, Sony deserves a lot of kudos for the new screen on that phone. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands back on the new XPERIA soon. So folks, this is becoming the most difficult metric to award. Looking at the coverage on the XPERIA 1 Mark III, how do you think it fares against folks looking to upgrade from a 2 or 3-year-old phone? Especially since those expensive phones should be able to last a bit longer. Drop some comments down below. Let's nerd out on some phone upgrades. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. Supporting your favorite content creators has never been more critical than it is today. So I greatly appreciate those of you who are. You're checking out the links in the description, maybe you're shopping a little merch. That kind of stuff really does help keep production rolling on this channel. There's a full list of all my affiliates and partnerships on SomeGadgetGuy.com, or you might consider, just maybe, joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list is basically a collection of the coolest tech pals on the internet today, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the web, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, Facebooks and the Instagrams, and I will catch you all on the next video.